testing. All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Season 8, Round 2 of Mexico. We are here live here at Mexico City for the F2 racing here at Midwest. Welcome back, everyone. It's a new week, new track. Maybe more racers this week than we had last week. I'm not too sure off the top of my head. But we do have 11 drivers for tonight going in. As we got our first some cars on track. Actually, we just got one car on track. It's just going to be A-Dub right now getting his first hot lap in the race. Or in qualifying, excuse me. As I'm trying to get everything set here. Don't need that. Alright. Hope everybody had a good week last week. Excuse me for 1 second. And A-Dub starts us out with a one. Oh, it's a one-shot quality. I'm dumb. I'm sorry. I got completely jumped off there by a second because I forgot that we are not doing full qualifying sessions. I forgot completely. I'm so used to doing short qualies. Do forgive me. So A-Dub sets the fastest lap only by 6/100ths of a second with a 1:24.3, followed by Lanzi in P2, Coleslaw in P3, Cake in P4, Scuba Steve in P5, Hotspot P6, Josh 7th, Army in 8th, Posh Josh in 9th, Saiyans in 10th, Kung Fu Panda in 11th as Posh, Saiyans, and Panda did not set a time. Um, Army with having the slowest time, always 11 seconds to the leader there in that session in qualifying. Um, so grid's going to kind of be interesting as we got the Van Amersfoort Racing Team front row lockout with Prima Racing second row lockout. So going to be an interesting battle. We'll definitely have to keep an eye on that. Why am I going to communicate with online servers right now? Okay. I thought there was something wrong. Ooh, and we got a rain race to start. Um, so this is going to be very interesting. If you're just joining us, welcome. Um, it's gonna be kind of interesting. I thought I was thinking more of a dry race, really, honestly, but a rain race makes things a lot more interesting in these F2 cars than I've ever imagined. Um, so it's gonna be quite interesting. Um, let's look at the race director real quick before this gets started, if I can get it. I cannot open the. Oh, there we go. So everybody's on wet tires, obviously. Um, and we're gonna get started here with our formation lap. Get our formation lap. Let these guys get their tires up to temp. And strategy-wise, I'm probably assuming this is going to be a one-stop on the wets. Or not even a one-stop. They're not going to stop at all. I would think. I don't think they have to stop on wet tires in F2. They might do. I don't know. I can't remember. But if they do, then it's definitely a one-stop, obviously, for everybody. Unless damage does occur. Hopefully we don't have no safety cars. Hopefully everybody gets through this race clean and we have a clean and efficient race. But it is Mexico. It is a very tight cornered track. As we're right on board here with the leader, just to kind of get an overview of the track for those who are not familiar with Mexico and how the layout is. So from the start finish line down to turn 1, it is a long straightaway with the DRS zone there, and then out of that chicane down the other front straightaway, you have a DRS zone there, and then they are coming up on the final DRS zone, which starts right about Actually, he already passed it, but that final DRS straight right there where the drivers are going through right now. So we have 3 DRS zones for this race. So that could make things interesting, but unfortunately, there's not going to be no DRS because we are in rain conditions. So all that this is going to come down to is the driver's strategies as far as which setup they picked. Preset setups only. No no custom setups for this F2 season. So only presets. So it's just going to be up to the drivers to perform well and go from there. As we already got Army spinning on the formation lap, so I would say his tires are really up to temp. As Kung Fu Panda is finally filling in his last grid spot. Josh is disqualified, and Kung Fu Panda is also disqualified. So, final car is on the track, and we got 1 light, 2 lights, 3 lights, 4 lights, 5 lights, and as the lights out, and away we go here in Mexico City. And it looks like A-Dub got a decent start, but Lanzi got the better track position with the grip off the car. Cake up into P2. And it looks like A-Dub and Coleslaw up into P3. Big jump as A-Dub late on the brakes, side by side. Through turn 2, into turn 3 as A-Dub does get the position, but there was a bump from Sands and Coleslaw's side. And he's battling with Scuba Steve currently. Guys falling towards the back here. Coleslaw, A-Dub, Sands, Scuba Steve going side by side. Good job going side by side through there, but Coleslaw retains the position. And right now it's just a race. It looks like actually A-Dub is falling out a little bit as Coleslaw moves into P3. A-Dub must have gotten not as good traction as Coleslaw out of the corner. Which getting traction here is going to be really difficult in these F2 cars, especially on these wet tires. Oh, and Coleslaw has a moment, almost loses the car. It would have been a disaster if he had lost that. And 3-car battle for third right now as Sands sends one on the inside of A-Dub and makes the clean move to get the job done. Now looking to get a hold of Coleslaw here out on down the straightaway. And Cake and Lanzi are just going at it. So the grid has kind of flipped a little bit here. A-Dub starting on pole all the way down into 5th by lap 1, by the end of lap 1. And Lanzi and Cake and Coleslaw Sands all the way jumping up already. And we've had Sands has jumped 6 positions from the grid start. It was really good for him. And we got, it looks like, 4-way battle for 7th at the time. Interval times are a little messed up at the current moment. Josh thinking about a move on Scuba Steve, but decides to hold off on it. I don't know if we're going to be looking for any brave moves down the inside as Scuba Steve's making a move on A-Dub again. A-Dub must have some sort of damage or he's really struggling. Already down to P6 now from pole in 2 laps. So big loss for A-Dub right now currently. Lanzi looking like he got about a second gap almost on Cake. Sands, Scuba Steve moving up finally. A-Dub's falling down the order, and he's got Josh and Hotspot to worry about now, but A-Dub's still keeping up with Scuba, so not too bad. Sands, and it looks like Sands got a good run. Oh, and has a moment right on the rear of Coleslaw out of the corner, and then has a moment there for a second and loses that time to Coleslaw. Josh. Oh. I don't know what happened there, but I think A-Dub had a connection error, and he kind of glitched into Josh's car. Josh backed out a little bit, but he took the position as he has a little bit of a moment. And Army's just sitting in the back, just being by himself. Oh, and we got contact made between A-Dub and looked like Josh had contact in the corner, and A-Dub loses another position due to that contact. And Josh and Kung Fu Panda going at it. They were side by side through that one part of the corner. Got a little battling going on right here in the middle of the pack between some of the drivers. Everybody's kind of splitting off a little bit. Scuba staying within the second of Stans, and Hotspot and A-Dub battling for P6 right now. Well, currently, I should say for P7. And Josh still sticking with Panda. Takes a wider line to get the better traction, it looks, from the outside. He's going to stick to the outside as Josh takes the inside line. Not going to work out well for Josh here. Lanzi still sets another fastest lap of the 139.4. And he's going to continue to stay behind him at the current moment. Looks like A-Dub's got a run on Hotspot going down the front straightaway. But is it going to be enough by the time they get to turn 1? No side draft. Who's going to break the latest? And it looks like A-Dub's going to break late, but he's going to lock up a little bit possibly and lose it. So Hotspot still retains his position. And Josh and Kung Fu Panda still staying together. This might be a battle we might see for just a little bit longer before we see another move happen. Late break by Josh to stay as close as he can to Kung Fu Panda through the corners. Not a bad maneuver to make, trying to stay close to somebody, especially the wets. And Scuba Steve catching up to Sans. Sans catching up to Coleslaw. So the battle for P4 or P3, excuse me, as Hotspot and A-Dub go together again, and looks like they were battling through the corner at the start of the S's, and A-Dub lost out on that one again. Hotspot still retains seventh place, excuse me. Josh looking for a move on Kung Fu Panda into the stadium section, and he's gonna get the move done. Shuts the door on Josh, excuse me, or shuts the door on Kung Fu Panda, excuse me. Kung Fu Panda's not giving up. He's fighting that inside line. Josh holds on really well. And I think that's just going to be a back and forth battle here soon. A-Dub, Hotspot still going at it down the front straightaway. Still through the corners. They're still going at it with each other. It looks like, yeah, Coleslaw and Sans. Sans late on the brakes and gets the move done on Coleslaw before turn 1 has happened. And a little bump right there kind of gave Coleslaw a little bit of a little bit of a mess up, which allowed Scuba Steve to get right back on his rear. And I think A-Dub did get the move done on Hotspot, it looks like, through 1 and 2 possibly. Other than that, we got just a couple battles brewing. The car lines, I would say, yeah. So right now, current battle, as Josh is kind of catching up to Scuba now. So we have a 4-way fight for P3, technically. It's now a 4-way fight into P3. Other than that, it's pretty quiet right now. But looks like Scuba and Coleslaw making moves on each other in the stadium section. And Scuba's going to hold on to that inside line. Lanzi setting another fastest lap. Looks like the track might be drying up a little bit because he's already knocked a whole second and a half, I want to say, off of his previous lap. Lanzi has. It was a 140 something, I'm pretty sure, last lap, and now he's at a 139. So the track could possibly be drying. I don't see any Scuba Steve late on the brakes into turn 1. Still side by side with Coleslaw. Josh just sitting back waiting for something to happen so he can get within the moment. That might be his moment right there as he pushes Coleslaw a little bit on the outside, and now Josh is looking for a move on Coleslaw, and he might be late on the brakes here to go around the outside of Coleslaw, but into that tight right-hander right here. And get through cleanly. Coleslaw doesn't go off the track, so that was a clean move by Josh, and now Josh is looking to get that 4th place from Scuba after that bump and run between Scuba and Coleslaw. And that has allowed Saiyans to kind of run away with a little bit of the battling going on behind, kind of giving Scuba a little bit of a gap off of Scuba. No moves done here in the stadium section as of now. Hotspot looking to be closing in on A-Dub now. Down to 600s. And Lanzi another fastest lap at 138. So the track is definitely drying. He's already up to the 138s now. So the track is definitely drying. Coleslaw, or excuse me, Josh and Scuba. Josh gets the move done, but Scuba's going to attack right back at him. They're going to go side by side into turn 1. Who's going to be later on the brakes? Looks like it's going to be nobody. And actually, it looks like we might have had a little bit of a bump there between Scuba and Josh. And they're holding it together very well, actually. Very impressive racing between the both. And that's kind of compromised Scuba now, that little battle. Now Coleslaw is back in it. And these three are just going back at it and forth with each other. Tighter line for Josh allows Scuba to get a better run out of the corner. With Josh taking that tighter line through the corner. Especially that right-hander. It's super tight right there, especially for a Formula 2 car. So you do lose a little bit of time that way. Josh up next to Hotspot. And it looks like A-Dub and Hotspot have finished their little battle for the moment. I wouldn't say it's over, but just for the moment. And Josh has worked himself back into some battling positions. We're going to keep still this battle for P5 at the moment. I mean, P4, excuse me. As Coleslaw, Scuba Steve, and Josh are fighting it out. It looks like Coleslaw might have lost a little bit of time. Has another moment coming out of the final corner. It's going to cost him even more time, so it's going to put him out of that 1 second margin. And Scuba Steve's just going to try to look for that help down the front straightaway. So kind of spacing out a little bit. It looks like Scuba gained some time out of that corner. He's down to 0.4 of a second. It's kind of bouncing back and forth, but he's gaining and losing a little bit of time through certain corners. Josh still kind of hanging back on Hotspot right now currently. Hotspot catching up back up to A-Dub. 1.6 seconds, 1.4 seconds. Scuba down to 0.04 of a second. And I think the onboards, it's just, I don't know if it's just me, but the onboards are just much more fun to watch than the broadcast camera, in my opinion. If you think differently, please let me know in the chat. If you think the broadcast camera is better. A-Dub getting a 3-second time penalty, probably going over track limits. Track limits is that white line on the track that you see. That white line running around the track on the inside line is the track limits. So all 4 wheels over that, and do that more than once and you get a penalty, as we've seen A-Dub get a penalty already. That's a 3-second time penalty at the current time. He does it 2 more times, it'll be another penalty. And Scuba Steve getting a great run down the front straightaways. He's challenging Josh into the corner. Does not break later than Josh. Decides to hold back, try to set Josh out for this second run of straightaway. Try to get him, and Josh has a little bit of moment with traction. Kind of costing him a little bit. I'm going to fall back here because it looked like on the map that Josh and Hotspot were pretty close together. Josh gets a time penalty now. So the 3-second time penalty to Josh from race control for too many times over the white line. And it's hard not to get a penalty on this track. It's very easy to get one if you're just not careful, especially in wet conditions. It's really difficult once the tire wear starts to kick in on these wets. You start to lose all the grip in your tires. But this is our current battle at the moment, as Josh is still trying to catch Hotspot. And Scuba Steve looking for a move on the outside. He's not going to get it done this time around. Ooh. Ooh! Big save by Scuba there. That was a great job. A little too much on the traction there. Cost him a little bit of time. Not too much. He can get a good exit out of here and good traction. Sands puts in the fastest lap at 138.4. Or 138.6, excuse me. So he's putting in some great pace now to try to catch the 2 leaders. A-Dub with another penalty for speeding in the pit lane. Today is just not A-Dub's day. He had a great qualifying lap. And then ever since the start of this race, it's been downhill ever since. So he's pitting early. Try to get a run on somebody. And he's going to put on another set of wets. No damage fixes on the front wings, so he'll serve that 5-second penalty if he pits again. If not, it will be added on at the end of the race. And Army in the pits as well. Looking for another change of wets. And the track, I'm looking at the track currently on the drivers' POVs from their cars. And there's not a lot of standing water, so I think we might go to inters. And I think that where the drivers might be struggling a little bit with the traction out of the corners. We're seeing a lot of people losing the rear ends of the car. I think the track is drying. Sun does look to be coming out over here by the stadium section. So could be Coleslaw with a 3-second time penalty. So that's how you know the track is drying. If people are starting to get penalties, track is definitely drying on the wets. And I think it's time for inters, honestly. But they might be holding off and waiting for a call for the dry tire. And it might be a dry switch to the halfway of this race. Lansing with a 138.4, the fastest lap. Excuse me. Now Josh putting in the fastest lap, 138.3. So the track is still drying a little bit more and more. It's not as wet as it was at the start of the race. But in my opinion, it is definitely starting to clear up. It looks like the clouds are starting to be pushed out from the pit, from the stadium side, as Kung Fu Panda is going to go ahead and pit. Let's see what he jumps onto. See if he's going to change for some inters. Nope, he's going to change to another set of wets. So still not dry enough for inters. I would assume that it's dry enough for inters, but could just be me. And looking at the sky right now coming down the straight, looks like it's starting to dry up or clear up a little bit. I don't see a lot of clouds. And we'll keep an eye out and see what happens. It does seem like everybody's a little bit more cautious now than before. And since we've had some pit stops, look at some tire changes. Josh, Hotspot, everybody in the top 8 yet to pit. Only the last 3, A-Dub, Panda, and Army, have pitted for new tires. Like I said, I don't know if we're going to see any tire changes as far as weather conditions go, but as of right now, it's not looking like it. Scuba Steve now setting the fastest lap, 138.3. So fastest lap's kind of changing a little bit, which it's making me think that the track is dry, and there's a dry line forming somewhere, even though the rain's coming down, but a drier line for the inters for the most part. Josh Trying to get a move done on Hotspot. Is he going to be want to be brave enough to break later than Hotspot to try to get him into turn 1? He is going to break a little later. It's going to be enough to get the move done. No, not going to try to pull the switchback. He's going to have to take a tighter line through the corner because he's decided to fight side by side with Hotspot. And Hotspot's going to become the one that gets a better advantage because Josh had to take the tighter line. If anything, probably should have looked for the switchback on that. Probably would have been a little bit easier to stay with Hotspot there on that. But we'll see. Hotspot having a couple moments there with the traction coming out of the corners. Seems to be all good for now. I don't know, chat. What do you think? I see some. Excuse me. Some clouds starting to fade away, and I just don't think it's wet enough for. Especially, I don't see any spray, and I don't know if that's just a glitch on my end, or if the drivers are still seeing it. Josh, the fastest lap, then switches to Scuba right after that, as they are telling each other technically, so that wouldn't make sense why, but Lancey still holding on to the lead just by about a second and almost 2 seconds on the lap. It looks like they're actually coming up on Army, actually, who's been not really much to talk about, as he's just now going into Sector 2, and the leaders are just now coming into Sector 2, so probably going to see a lapped car here very soon. Josh still all over the back of Hotspot, trying to get a move done to claim that 7th position. And this race is coming to an end here very shortly. And I don't think we're going to see any tire changes from the leaders. I think they're just going to stick this one out to the end. And it's just whoever has the best set of tires at the moment, really. Scuba Steve losing some time to Josh, almost a second back on him. But Josh and I say Josh, and I mean Posh Josh. I'm going to just start calling him Posh because we do have another Josh on track. But Josh keeping it as close as he can. Posh Josh with another fastest lap. Josh sends it into the corner, into the stadium to try to get on the back of Hotspot. And looks like that was not the right move in question at the time, because he's lost a lot of time now. Not within a second of him anymore. It's close, but he lost a lot of time unless he locked up. I think it was probably a lockup more than anything. Just too much of a late break, and Scuba Steve almost within a second. And we still have yet to see any changes as far as the grid goes and battling. Not really seeing a lot from the leaders, but looks like Sayans is catching just a little bit until he had that moment there. And that's going to help Josh Posh catch up to him. Or Posh Josh, I don't know which one to say. I would think I'm going to run with Posh Josh. It looks like they are starting to catch a little bit as they're now coming through the stadium section. So they are starting to catch P3 from the looks of it. And maybe Sands is dealing with traction maybe. And oh, it looks like Posh had a moment. Coming out of that final corner, almost ran into the pit lane. And that's going to help Scuba Steve out a lot. Hotspot with the 3-second time penalty for corner cutting. Multiple warnings. So that just helps Josh right there, because Josh has been trying to get past him ever since. Scuba Steve and Posh Josh make contact through turn 1. Side by side, make contact out of turn 1, going through turn 2 and 3. Josh moves up into, or excuse me, still down in P6 or P5, and he has a penalty. So if you're Scuba, I mean, you don't really have to fight him. He's got a 3-second time penalty that he hasn't served, or he's not gonna be able to serve. So if he does pass you, I mean, if he makes a mistake, you can take it on and try to regain the position then. But if not, I mean, you know, you just sit back and relax and ride out these last 5 laps of this race and take your P4 position due to a penalty. But sometimes it's better if, you know, to hold on to that. But it looks like, I want to say, let's see here, 2 3-second penalties, and Josh is not close enough to jump Coleslaw. Coleslaw has kind of outran him. So unless Josh can close the gap to Coleslaw here shortly, then he could possibly jump Josh and Coleslaw for into P5 if he can catch up to them. As they're just now, Coleslaw's just now going into turn 1. Josh is just now crossing the start-finish line. So about 11-second gap to the Coleslaw. A lot of gap to be closing. Pray for a miracle, maybe. And so far, it's been a pretty clean race. I mean, we've had a little bit of bumping and running, a little tire banging, but no wrecks, no DNFs so far, which is good. 4 laps left to go in the race, and we might get through this one with a clean race and no safety car. A-Dub 8-second time penalty. So as of right now, he will stay where he's at, as Kung Fu Panda is outside the 8-second mark of A-Dub. So unless he can knock off about a full second or so off of A-Dub, Scuba Steve with a 1:37.945 on the fastest lap. And it looks like we might have somewhat of a battle. Scuba Steve has caught up to Sands. Or, no, that's... Am I missing something here? Ah, I am. Army has been lapped. I forgot about him. My apologies. So, Army has been lapped now. And they are coming up on the lap car as we speak. He's going to run wide, blue flags being waved. As long as he doesn't re-enter the track dangerously, and he doesn't. Gives the 2 drivers space. And that's currently all this battle is right now, is just Posh Josh and Scuba Steve. It's been like that for a little bit. Sands is knocking down that 1 second to Cake. Trying to at least. He's getting there. It's just looks like he might be struggling with traction maybe. So not too bad. We're just really waiting to see if Cake set the fastest lap, then Thomas. Now it's Posh. Fastest laps going everywhere around the track right now. Everybody's fighting for those little extra points that matter. Josh is finally getting the run that he wants, but it's not enough down into turn 1 to get Scuba out of position. And I think this has pushed Scuba and them actually into catching. Yeah, into catching Sands and them, as Sands and Cake and Landsy are very close together now. So I wonder if the drivers are starting to struggle for traction. It's kind of grouped them back up a little bit, so I have to keep an eye out for that and see what happens going here in the next couple of laps to the end of the race. Well, we might have a little bit of a battle here approaching soon. Sands now within a second of Cake. So he's starting to catch. Cake might be struggling for traction, but it might not be because he's gaining on Lanzi. Now all three within a second. The top three podium finishers within a second of each other. So we could see some battling up here at the front for the win. Coming into the final couple laps of the race as Lanzi rounds the final corner, and he's going to start lap 19 with a 1 second gap to Cake. And Cake with a 1 second gap to Sands. Scuba Steve setting the fastest lap with a 1:37, 1:18. Fastest lap times have kind of been going down a little bit. They're still going down as we speak. In the 1:37s now, as far as lapping goes. So I really thought that we might see a change in weather here and might be able to put on some dry tires, but it doesn't look like it. It almost looks like it's time for inters. I'm being completely honest, but I don't know what the drivers are seeing versus what I'm seeing, but I don't see no puddles on the track, no standing water, no mist coming off their tires, so that makes me think it's almost inter time, or it is inter time, and that the track is drying because of all the fastest laps that we've been seeing posted. But here we are, Cake, half a second basically to Lanzi now on lap 19 out of 20. Sands kind of falling back a little bit more. Josh still under within that second of Scuba Steve. We haven't seen much out of them since their last recent battle, but we could see something for the win here between Cake and Lanzi. We'll continue to monitor Scuba Steve and Josh's interval times as we watch this battle for the win. And they're coming through Stadium. Lanzi's going to run us around the final corner for the final time of this race. Round 2, Mexico City. Is Lanzi going to be able to take the win? And Sands kind of jumped back into that 1 second gap. But I think our main focus really here is Cake and Thomas. Cake, Thomas, and Lanzi. If Cake can gain any more time on Lanzi and try to get a move done on him before the final lap, or before the finish line, or if Lanzi can have enough pace in that car to outrun Cake just enough to secure the W. And really, I think without that help of DRS, if we had DRS at the moment, we could have a lot of battles on our hands currently. We would have had a lot of battles on our hands already earlier. But now Scuba Steve in the mix for the top 4, all within a second of each other now, going into the final lap. And we're coming through the final S section for the final time tonight. And it looks like it might stay exactly where it's at unless somebody's willing to make a big dive bomb into a corner. Cake, it's a pretty far back dive bomb if I had to say so. And Scuba having some traction trouble coming out of the S's. And it looks like we're going to stay exactly where we are. Josh, with Posh Josh with another 3 second time penalty, which that's not going to help Coleslaw at all. So Posh Josh is going to retain that position. And Sands might get the run on Cake as Lanzi's going to cross the finish line as your Mexico GP winner. Cake in P2, Sands in P3, Scuba Steve P4 to cross the line, Posh Josh in P5. Coleslaw final time around the last corner. He's going to take home P6 with the penalty. Josh, final corner for the final time, going to take home P7. And I think everybody's going to stay exactly where they're at. Army being lapped, he is finished, so he did not get to get a final lap in due to him being lapped so late in the race and being 50 plus seconds behind the leaders, or behind his person, or behind the guy in 10th. We'll check the leader. So he's a minute and 37 seconds off the leader. Kung Fu Panda a minute 10. And for the top four, it wasn't too bad. Half a second off of Lanzi, 1.8. A-Dub with another 5-second time penalty for the unserved penalty. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to serve it. He did not pit again to serve that 5-second time penalty earlier in the race that he had picked up from speeding in the pit lane. And that's going to do it for the Mexico City Grand Prix here for F2 in Midwest. I'll hop on the Discord real quick and see if we can get some guys in to have a chat. Oh, excuse me, I had posted this in the wrong chat. F2, my bad. Alright, I'm going to see if I can get the guys in here real quick, so please bear with me for a moment. As I try to get these guys in here. Which, I don't know if I, trying to find these guys. I don't have them in here from the looks of it. Yeah, I don't have them. Alright, we're gonna see if we can make this work. I'm gonna get one of the guys in here and then hopefully he will add the other two. Alright. As we're getting some of the guys in, we'll go ahead and start. We'll start with the race winner, Lanzi. Congratulations on the win. Um, how did you had a good start actually on the beginning of the race. I know Adub was on the podium to start the race, and he just kind of fell off the map there for a minute. And you and Cake and Coleslaw kind of like jumped the pack there a little bit and took the first three positions. So how did that happen for you?
Well, yeah, I got a good launch of the line, and Ada was struggling because the full traction limits him very highly in the rain.
Mm-hmm.
So he was always going to struggle today. Um, First couple laps I had pretty good pace, felt pretty comfortable, had a good gap. Um, Maintained the gap for, I would say, most of the race, but in the end they found some pace that I couldn't find and got close, but thankfully I could hang on.
Okay, well, other than that, I mean, how did the car feel for you? The tires felt pretty good. You didn't feel like you needed to stop again. Was it a one-stop race for y'all, or was it not
Yeah,
not even a stop at all?
yeah, yeah. The tires were pretty okay. I hit 50, 55 at the end, so last
Okay.
couple of laps were a bit squirmy, but was pretty confident they could take us to the end.
Yeah, it seemed like the degradation on the tires kind of started to wear off towards the middle of the race. I think I want to say lap 15, people started picking up a lot of penalties. So that's what it kind of looked like. So I was thinking that with the weather, what it looked like on track, that it was gonna try to dry up maybe halfway into the race, and y'all were gonna go to dries. But was it still wet? Was there still a lot of rain on track? Because from my point of view, it didn't look like it. The track was ready for inters possibly of some sort, or
Yeah,
you know.
when the time started dropping, I thought maybe it was going to Inters, but my engineer kept saying it was heavy rain for the next 20 minutes, so I was like, well,
Okay.
just go with it.
All right, cool. Yeah, I guess I was seeing a different POV from what y'all were seeing. Because to me, from my end, it looked like the track was dry enough for inters, and with y'all's fastest lap times dropping, I just assumed that that was the case. But nonetheless, but congratulations on the win. We'll go ahead and
Thank
move
you.
on to Cake, scoring P2 for Prima. Cake, congratulations. And how was your race?
Thank you. It was pretty good. Got off the line good. Uh, I saw A-Dub struggled a little bit. I was able to get up to second, kind of held it. Um, Lancey was pulling away from me a little bit in that middle part of the race, but then I found a little pace near the end. Just didn't really have enough time to make it happen, and without the DRS, is kind of hard to pull up close enough because you'd be faster in a couple sections, and I'd be faster in a couple sections. So the delta kind of just stayed pretty consistent the whole race.
Yeah, I did notice that a lot of there was some battling between, Josh and Hotspot, they were still pretty close within each other and still gaining time on the straightaways against each other, battling each other on the straights with that, with even without the DRS. So I was thinking there towards the end, when you were breaking that 1 second margin, that maybe down the front straight that you guys would gain some time, and then Saiyans popped in and so did Scuba too. Y'all were at least, it was almost, y'all were all four within a second of each other at one point in the race for at least a lap or two. But nobody just seemed to improve on the delta as far as that.
Yeah, it was getting really close near the end. I also had the different setup than Lancey. I was using the one that has a little more downforce just to
Mm.
make that S section a little easier because in practice I wasn't really able to make that the highest speed setup work for me. But it is what it is. I'm still happy with the P2. Get some more points, move forward in the season.
Yeah, and how is your tire degradation? I'm just curious.
It was fine. Jeff told me to pit around lap 10, but I didn't see any reason for it. Yeah, I probably could have went another 10 laps and would have been fine as long as it stayed dry or it stayed wet.
Yeah. Now like I asked Lanzi, did they at the beginning of the race did they say, hey, y'all should make this a one-stop race, or was it just an all the way through type of thing?
Yeah, it was calling for a pit stop around lap 10. So
Mm.
yeah, I wasn't sure if the game was going to force you to do that. I wasn't exactly sure how the F2 rules work, but I'm glad it didn't because
Yeah.
I felt like I could go the whole way without stopping.
Well, I think if we were racing more than, I think if it was doing like a 100% race, I think it would have forced y'all to stop to make a change. But I think with it
Okay.
being 50%, I think in F2 on the wets, they do not have to make a pit stop. I think it's the same rule in Formula One as well. Actually, they don't have to make a pit stop on the wet tires, or the
Okay.
inters, but it's only on dries that they have to change compounds.
I got you.
But you have to double check that on the F2 rule book. Um, I don't want to give you the wrong information. But congrats once again on the P2, and we're gonna flip over to our P3 candidate, Sayans. Are you with us?
Yep, here.
Congratulations on P3, man. Final podium position. Good points for your team. How did you feel out there, man?
It was tricky for sure. Definitely, yeah, very wet, but yeah, I'm just happy for the P3. It was tough trying to gain positions, but I got lucky from the start. Gained from 10th to 7th and before turn one, and yeah, it was charging on from there on.
Yeah, I would say that you were probably more than likely. I would assume the game gave you driver of the day. You did start from P10 and end up in P3 to finish the race. No time penalties, obviously. Y'all three all came close to getting the fastest lap as well, but Scuba Steve had kind of snatched that from y'all towards the end with a
Hmm.
137.1. But with the track drying up, I guess I'm assuming towards the end of the race, that's why the times kept flipping on y'all. But you had an incredible run there from the start. I had not noticed you moving up until you got into about P7 or P6, and I'd noticed that you just started pushing and climbing, and it looked like a good result for you. Um,
Yeah.
but how was your tire degradation for the race?
For till the end, there were about 45.
About 45%, and your down and your setup was medium, high, low.
Uh, the fourth one, I believe.
Fourth, the fourth one for to the highest.
Preset 4.
Preset four. Oh,
Yeah,
okay. So almost maximum downforce, but a little bit extra straight line speed.
yeah.
Yeah, it's not
I
too
was
bad.
very I was more confident on the fifth one, but when I saw the rain in the for the race, I switched to the fourth, even though I wasn't very comfortable with it. But
Yeah, try to
yeah,
get
to
that
manage.
extra straight line speed down the straightaway, knowing Mexico has that long straightaway down the front straight.
Yeah, but I wanted more downforce through the corners
Yeah,
because
of
I knew I was
course.
gonna struggle. So
Yeah,
I
especially
went.
with the F2 cars and the wet tires, it doesn't really help too much. It's more harder to get traction in the F2 cars than it is on the F1 cars, sorta.
Mhm.
Um, all right, man. Well, congratulations to y'all three. I appreciate y'all jumping in and being patient with me. Um, but we're gonna end the
No
stream
problem.
here. We will see you guys back here, chat. We'll see y'all back here next Tuesday for round three. Round three is going to be at Coda. we're gonna go to COTA. We're gonna head to the U.S. and do a 2-race over at COTA and Miami, November 22nd and November 29th. So please make sure y'all tune in for that. Also, please make sure you tune in this Thursday for the Formula One races here back on Midwest F1. Division 1 should be on the channel streaming their races while we have the other divisions racing 1 through 6. So make sure y'all tune in Thursday for F1, and Friday we will have our first race of the season for the 100% race distance crew. So myself included will be in that race. So please make sure y'all check into that here on Midwest F1 League here on Twitch at Friday at, I will tell y'all the time. It is going to be at 7 o'clock Central Time, 8 o'clock Eastern. So please make sure y'all tune into that and check out the Formula One 100% race distance as we go into season 2. Thank you guys so much. Have a great night.